But I think Christians need to be active in not only defending, but offensively fighting against critical race theory. But part of the reason is because of our history. And why do you think we should protect that? And what are some commonly misunderstood aspects of our history that the world needs to know?
Well, first of all, in America, the creation of America, there was a lot to do with godly motivations. I'm not saying everybody that came and founded the country were necessarily born again Christians or whatever, but there were a lot of the colonies and colonists who came over because they were motivated by their faith, because they were basically trying to get away from persecution, being forced to conform to like the Church of England, for example. Let's just take New England. New England, those states up there, initially, all the different colonies that were created. In fact, the first one was the little Plymouth, Massachusetts. 100 people, only 100 people, and half of them number died of from the cold and diseases, and some even from starvation that first winter. And yet that was the beginning. The Pilgrims, though, in a very strong way, they cast a very long and positive shadow, even though they were very small in number. And they said, the reason we're coming over is for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. And they were blown off course. Their goal was to go to the northern parts of Virginia, which in those days was much larger than it is today. But because they were blown off course, and because some of the hired hands that they had brought with them, who were sympathetic with their goals to, establish this colony for Christ's glory, they were sympathetic with that on the one hand, and on the other hand, they weren't directly part of their particular church covenant. Yeah. So anyway, some of these hired hands, whom they were called strangers. So the Mayflower had saints and strangers. So, that's the way some people label it. So some of these guys were thinking, well, we're not under the king's jurisdiction anymore because we're not in the northern parts of Virginia, which is what the charter said. So they were going to go off on their own. And so in order to avoid any kind of, disunity like that within the colony itself, the Pilgrim Fathers were very smart. They took the biblical type covenant that they had made when they became a church in the first place back in England, in secret, back when it was illegal to do so, around 1606, when they created their covenant, and they politicized it. We call it the Mayflower Compact. And it was the beginning of the first of all these different political charters and so forth that ultimately lead to the U.S. Constitution. As Dr. Os Guinness, who got his PhD, or D.Phil, his doctorate of philosophy at Oxford University, he likes to put it this way. He says, the biblical concept of covenant gave rise to the U.S. Constitution.
I love
That's
that,
very well put. The Mayflower Compact, November 11th, 1620 says, in the name of God, amen. We whose names are undersigned, having undertaken a voyage for the glory of God and the advancement of the faith, ... do covenant and combine ourselves into a civil body politic.
Now I want to stop you right there because I think that, and I want you to continue that story though, here in a moment, but because I know that I don't know the right word for it, but the inundation of the ideas and the stories that were being told now, and a nation is formed on the stories that they tell themselves. We're being told stories now that, they might have been good, godly men, but they were slave drivers and slave owners. You think Thomas Jefferson, one of the founders of our country.
Okay, you're talking now about the founding era. I'm beginning in the settling era. And, with the Pilgrims and the Puritans, there were no slaves there.
Okay.
That came in Virginia, which was a different type of colony. I mean, can you differentiate? England and so forth. And, believe it or not, the first slaves came over even a year before the Pilgrims did. Yeah. But what happened was, you had this two different types of strands, but these godly settlers, as in the example of the Pilgrims and the Puritans, and even a lot of the Church of England people and so forth. They didn't, slavery wasn't a part of all of the different colonies. Now, I want to say something about slavery, and that is that obviously it's a terrible evil.
Yes.
And it's certainly true that some people use the Bible to justify slavery, but it's also, and this is the critical point, it was the Bible and the influence of the Bible that largely got rid of
100%.
slavery.
You can catch brand new episodes of Indie Thinker with Reed Huberman every Monday and weekly bonus episodes to keep you thinking throughout the week. But you have to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when new episodes drop. If you enjoy this content, make sure to like this video and share it with friends.